Hey, it's Roberta here. In this episode, we do talk about intergenerational trauma and toxic family dynamics, which I know can be distressing depending on your background. So, if you need resources or support, we drop some links in the show notes for this one. Thanks so much for listening, and please take care of yourselves.
It's so hard to have people understand this when they come from, like, a relatively normal relationship. I'm grieving somebody. I'm grieving this vision of somebody that is not real. I made up this person in my head of who I wanted and who I know they could become, but that's not a real person. The real person is in front of me, and this is how they are. So how do I accept this real person and translate our relationship to one that makes me safe but also still honors and respects this relationship from the distance that I need?
Welcome to In Her Words. This podcast is for women navigating through change, career, identity, motherhood, and just figuring out what's next. I'm Roberta Dombrowski, host of In Her Words and founder of Learn Mindfully. Each episode, I sit down with women who are asking big questions, navigating transitions, and trying to make sense of life as it shifts. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just need space to be real. Let's get into it. With me today, I have Anna Vecchi. She is a first-gen Chinese Italian American, a graphic designer originally from Connecticut, now based in Ohio. She has over a decade of experience in graphic design, is an only child of immigrants, and over the years has proactively taken care of her physical, emotional, and mental health. Welcome, Anna.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation with you today.
Yeah, same, same. You mentioned growing up as a first-gen Chinese, Italian, American only child.
I know, it's a
There's so
lot.
much in there.
A lot. There's so many layers to that.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
lot of layers, yeah.
I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about, like, some of those layers and how do your intersectional identities really shape how you saw yourself growing up and just the world that is America?
Yeah. So, especially growing up where I was, being in North Central Connecticut, close to Yukon, it's a very predominantly white area. Growing up the way that I did, I never really noticed I was different until other people noticed I was different for me.
Mhm.
So, I never really noticed it until I was in first grade and I was being called names by my peers on the playground, and then when you're that young, all you wanna do is fit in, right?
Yeah.
So, it kind of was something that I wanted to suppress and hide away. Now, of course, hindsight being 2020, I know that it's a good thing to celebrate these things about yourself that make you an individual and make you unique.
Yeah.
But when you just wanna fit in, you just wanna fit in.
Yeah.
And I know that my mom tried to put me in Chinese classes, and I hated it because I was the oldest one, and I was the only one that looked like me in those classes, because when you come from such a mixed background, you feel like you have one foot in both environments, and because of that, you can't fully be immersed in one or the other. So, it's almost like anytime I go and visit my relatives in Singapore, Indonesia, I feel like I don't belong. Or anytime I'm with my peers that are predominantly white, I feel like I don't 100% fit in. So, it's like I could speak about both these things, but I don't really fit in both those places. So growing up, it was like, okay, let's do everything possible to be like my friends. And then I slowly started to really come into being comfortable with my multifaceted identity as I was in college and like post grad, honestly. And what is really interesting is that it kind of took all the it took all the negative events of COVID to really hit me and know that like I would never be white enough to remove myself from these situations because these things are happening to people that look like me. And it was like, no matter what I could do to try and fit in these groups that are generally accepted, it wouldn't happen. So why not talk about that and be in communities that have people like me and like, get comfortable with it. And then when we got married, we were really determined to include all aspects of our cultural background. My husband is Jewish and Irish. me being Chinese and Italian, we're like, "Okay, we have a lot of things to cover.
Yeah.
How are we gonna do it?" And I spoke with my aunts, my mom's sisters, and because my mom is Chinese, my mom's sisters, and I was like, "Hey, for the Chinese part of, like, wedding ceremonies, like, what do I do?" And I I was worried that it wouldn't feel natural for me to do that because I'm the only person in my whole entire circle that would have this kind of tradition, and I was like, "Can I do this? Like, have I been, quote, unquote, Chinese long enough for me to do this? Like, do I know enough to do it?" And that was the part that stressed me out the most, all, like, the Chinese stuff that we were doing for our wedding, and I was so relieved to know that my aunts were like, "No, like, this is what you should be doing. You should be doing it because this is who you are. It doesn't matter
You've
how
always
much."
been this.
That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's just who you
Yeah.
are, and, like, better late than never kinda thing, which I really appreciated that they didn't bat an eye about it. So, I think it's a relief to know that my relatives don't see that when I would kind of feel that way based off of the environment that, you know, we're a part of.
Yeah, what you're saying really resonates. I'm actually a transracial adoptee. I was born in Colombia and I was raised by in a white family. And so what you're describing as trying to fit into the culture that is around you really resonates because it's like I look this way, but like it doesn't matter how hard I try or what my personality or the things that I do, I still look this way. I still stick out, so to
Yes.
speak, as a
Yes.
child and as an adult. Yeah, and then I think it's what's really interesting too is it's not so much the internal family, at least from, like, growing up for me, it's like I'm part of the family, but it was the perception of everybody. It was the you're walking down the street and you look different than everyone else.
I remember my mom has told me instances of I think when she was in Indonesia with me, I think this is where it happened, but it's interesting too, even my cousins have noticed this. They're like, "Sometimes in different points in your life, you look more Asian and more white." So, apparently, when I was under the age of 5, I looked more white,
Yeah, yeah.
and my mom was with me in Indonesia, and she was addressed as if she was the maid of the people that were my parents.
Oh, wow.
And I'm just like, "That is wild to think about," because, like, we don't look that different,
Mhm,
as
mhm.
adults, and it's just to have people make that immediate assumption, 1, is
Yeah,
great, but
yeah.
also, like, we are related. I don't know how people could ever, like, not think that way in general.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious as you talked about preparing for the wedding and incorporating some of the Chinese culture into the wedding ceremony. Do you feel like that was a moment where you really claimed or stepped into that part of your identity that maybe you brushed aside or tried to like hide away when you were younger?
I think so, yeah, I think it was really transformative in multiple aspects. Because right, I'm stepping in from, like, singlehood to being a married woman, but then also I was put in a position to learn a lot more about why we do the things we do, and what really was helpful is that my aunts were really the one that kind of, like, shepherded me through a whole entire process because my mom never did any of these things when she got married, and she was kind of ostracized by older relatives because of it, but my aunts really, like, explained everything to me, broke down why we did what we did, and then they also were kind enough to go through the explanations with my in-laws and Ben's relatives. So, like, throughout the whole entire process, they were like, "This is why we do this. This is why we have this many numbers. Like, this is what this is significant for," like, all this stuff. And I thought it was really wonderful to know that they were so welcoming and, like, inclusive with it. And I mean, it makes sense. I'm not surprised because my mom is married to a white person and one of my aunts is married to a white person. So it's like they know that this blended thing is gonna happen. But they were just so good about it. And I think that the awkwardness that I would feel visiting them never came from them. It always came from just the social settings we were in. We, meaning my cousins and relatives that aren't native speakers, would be coming in, being thrown into the mix, treated like family, but also not being fully in the fold. But yeah, I think the tea ceremony and, like, all the other ceremonies that we had, I feel like I was like, "Oh, I did this. Like, me and my cousin did this. Like, me and my relatives have done this." And that's really cool that I have this one unique thing in common with them because it felt like growing up, I didn't have a lot of things in common with them. I'm the only one in the United States, and they're in Singapore, Indonesia, and then my other cousin in the Netherlands has a totally different experience too. So
Yeah, yeah. And what a tradition too that you can like if your children, if you decide to have children, of course, if it's a tradition that they would
mhm,
want to inherit too
yeah.
someday. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really glad that we did it and that we did the ones we did. And yeah, it's just really special. I we had friends that were able to witness it too, and they were like, "It's the coolest thing." And Ben's family loved it and were super receptive, and I was actually really impressed. You have in the Chinese tea ceremony, younger relatives have to be prepared to give you red envelopes with money in them in certain denominations for luck, and I told them, I was like, "It doesn't have to be a lot. It could literally be, like, $4, $8. Like, it doesn't have to be, like, an insane amount of money." And I was fully prepared. I bought extra envelopes in case they didn't have any, and all of his family came with envelopes ready
Oh,
for
wow.
the money for them to put in it, and I
Yeah.
was like, wow, like, that means so much to me that you went ahead and ordered these and, like, made sure they arrived on time, you traveled with them, and you had them ready to go, and I didn't have to plan anything for it, so that was really cool.
Yeah. Oh my god. That sounds amazing. We had very opposite wedding experiences.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I love it. I'm curious as growing up in a child in this environment, I'm curious if you received any specific messages about like performance or duty or even identity as a child. I know, yeah, I'm very
Oh,
curious.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So, like, it doesn't help that I'm the only daughter in this household either, because I feel like in so many cultures, not just Asian culture, so much pressure is put on the daughter in the household, especially with immigrant parents. They want their kids to obviously have a better life than they had
Mhm,
coming
mhm.
over, and I totally understand and respect it, but the pressure was insane. I remember in high school and middle school, I was a straight A and B student. I worked really hard to get to those points because even when I was in my public school, I think you started to have to get your negative test results signed
Oh,
in, like,
wow.
5th or 6th grade. Like, they had to be signed by a parent, and your parent had to know if you
I
got
used to
below
forge
certain.
my mom's signature on those.
I did too.
Yeah.
I got so good
Me
at
too.
forging my mom's signature because I was petrified.
Yep, same.
I remember the very first time they had to sign, like, a test for me,
Yeah.
oh my god, I felt like the fear of God was being instilled into me at this moment, and I'm, like, 11. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
why
like
is this so serious at 11 years old? And I remember I got one test signed, and I was like, "I promise it's never gonna happen again," and then I struggled, and it did happen again, but I had that one test that I could copy. I practiced my mom's signature because it was the easier one. I practiced my mom's signature, and I signed the rest of my negative test results for for the rest of my public school
oh
education.
my gosh.
I know it's terrible, but I knew that I was going to be chewed out.
Yeah. Yeah,
And,
yeah.
like, we know that's not productive, and we know that's not
Yeah.
helpful at all to someone who is literally a child.
And the pressure makes you perform, like,
Yeah,
horribly too.
yeah,
It's makes
and
it
and
worse. Yeah.
and now it's, like, the anxiety that I get,
Yep.
right,
Yep.
from knowing that if I don't do it right the first time, it's an immediate failure, and I'm never
Yeah.
gonna so, like, the anxiety that came with that, it's still present.
Yeah.
Obviously not as debilitating as it was when I was in middle school and high school, but
Yeah.
it's still very much there, and I think that strive to being perfect and being treated normal in my house,
Mhm.
it was so hard for me to adjust in college because I was being challenged, and I think that's where my ADHD probably got more present and more prominent because I was like, know how to study. I don't know how to do these things because I was basically used to getting things drilled into my brain, but that it didn't work for me in an environment that I was able to have other interests. So I remember, I think I got like 2 C's in my whole entire college career. I'll never forget them. I'll know the classes. I remember everything about them, and I remember it's just so, like, ingrained in my mind,
Yeah.
the need to be perfect and, like, high performing and, like, have all these, like, accolades to show that I have paid off my parents' efforts of coming here.
Yeah, yeah. And what's interesting too is you studied graphic design in college as well. And so I'm curious about performance even in that aspect because with art, like
A whole thing. I
yeah.
remember when I was in high school and I told my parents that I wanted to go to I wanted to be an artist for college. I was like, "This is what I wanna do, like, this is what I'm good at." And even then, thinking about it, I wanted to major in something that I knew I wouldn't fail in. Not necessarily a deep burning passion of mine. I
Mhm.
enjoy it, I love it, I do, but it's not like my dream job, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I know I'm good at it and I like it. So I'm gonna pursue it. That's
Yeah.
kind of how it went. And my dad was like, "You're not gonna make any money by doing this. So you need to figure something else out." And I was like, "Okay, well, maybe art therapy." And in 2009, not heard of.
No,
So
yeah.
really hard and really niche and a struggle. And my parents were like, "Try again." I was like, "What do you mean, try again?" And luckily enough, my high school graphics teacher, honestly, kind of print production is what it was, but she went to RIT and she was like, "Hey, I think this would be really good for you." And she was correct. I remember working really hard to get my portfolio pieces ready for applications, and I was in the only AP class I was in was AP art, and I worked my ass off in it. And we had like an art show in the town hall, and of course my parents were like super excited about it. So like as long as there was a way to measure success,
Yeah, yeah.
they were cool with it,
Yep,
right?
yep.
As long
I
as there was a way to be like, "Oh, okay, like, she's good." Then they were like, "Okay, yeah, you could do that."
Yeah,
So, the fact that I was able to get into multiple colleges,
yeah,
already a success. The fact that I was able to get scholarships in some, already a
yeah.
success. And then to maintain the grades, they were like, "Great, to get an internship, awesome. Get a job." They're like, "Okay, you're fine." As long as I didn't become destitute, I suppose. They were, like, cool with it.
I feel like it's like the black and white thinking that parents have where it's like, if you're an artist, it means you're either, like, really great, like, in the Louvre, or you are completely poor. There's, like, no middle
There's no in
ground.
between. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even now, I feel like they don't really understand what I do, which I get it. Like, especially their backgrounds and where they come from, and, like, my father's 85. So, like, he has a very different grasp of what graphic arts is like.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't think they fully understand what I do. And they're like, "Well, maybe you could do these things." And I was like, "I wanna be very clear to you, I am not an artist. Don't illustrate. I haven't painted in years. Everything I do is literally on the computer, occasionally a sketchbook. It's very different, but it's just a different form of creativity."
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Last question about the art, and then I wanna shift to kind of the meat of the topic, but I'm curious, you mentioned your perfectionism in school. Has that impacted your journey with art and creation?
Yeah, that really bit me the first year in my first job
Mhm.
because I was in an ad agency for 10 years until I recently transitioned to my current role, which is in-house.
Yeah.
And in an ad agency environment, it is so fast-paced
Yeah.
and so client deadline focused that I had to get used to giving them something that was passable real fast. And,
Yeah.
like, even if I wanted time to make things perfect the way that I knew it would be perfect, the client was like, "We need this by, like, 3 p.m. today." And I'd be like, Okay, I guess I'll as long as you're happy with it, then I guess I'll be happy with it." And it got to the point where I felt as though I was just churning stuff out and there wasn't really anything of substance in my mind. I even told one of my former coworkers that the one thing that I have a really hard time with at my old job was out of the years that I've been there, I could count on 2 hands the pieces that I wanna showcase in my portfolio because everything else is just so ground out. So that was really difficult to get used to at first, and knowing that the only way that I can have things be quote unquote perfect is if I'm doing things for myself in my spare time.
Yeah, it's like in that environment, you won't hit the standards of quality that you have for yourself, but the client won't have like, the client's standards are gonna be lower.
Yes.
You're like, "That's acceptable? Okay."
Yeah. Like, "This is great," and I'm like, "Is it? Okay. Alrighty. If you're
Yeah.
happy, then that's awesome."
Yeah, yeah. Shifting a little bit, you've spoken so far a little bit about your relationship with your mother and how complex it was. I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about what that journey looked like for you over the years.
Yeah. So the biggest shift happened, I want to say, almost a decade ago, but it really started taking a turn, I want to say junior high into high school. And of course, when you think about childhood development, that's when you're trying to really figure out who you are, be your own person, and have your own opinions. And she has a very hard time with anybody having different opinions from her. So that was when we started butting heads a lot. And when I started getting a job, and I've been working ever since I was 16. I haven't taken a year off. Sometimes I've worked multiple jobs in a year. So I've just been grinding. And I remember my first job, it's retail, right? So I'm making less than $9 an hour.
Yeah.
And there would be moments that she would ask me, I put ask in quotes, ask me for money from me to help pay the mortgage or help pay groceries or help pay these bills. And I would tell her like, I don't have that. Like I'm I'm paying the gas for my own car. I'm doing these things. Like I'm a 16-year-old kid. I want to do things with my friends. I want to go to the diner, movies, and I would get reamed out about how I'd be ungrateful or how I'm just like my father, and that's a whole other thing too, is that she would deflect anything that didn't make her happy as other people's problems or other people's faults. And this carried on into college, even when I had a job in college, and at that point, I was paying my own rent and everything too, and it was just like, I don't understand how we even what are we doing? Like, this doesn't feel normal. If I didn't speak to them for more than a week, she would think that the worst thing happened to me, so she's very catastrophizing
Yeah.
and kind of, like, very doom and gloom, and I remember there was one instance, I think it was after grad school, and I was at a friend's house from college, and my parents were picking me up to take me to the airport because I wasn't able to get a ride. I forget what the situation was, but they were picking me up to take me to the airport. And my mom, she always feels as though people are out to get her or have something against her for whatever reason. And she thought that my friend was being dismissive of her when they picked me up, which wasn't the case at all. It was a party, she was distracted. And my mom asked me in the car, she was like, "What did you tell her about me?" And I was like, "What are you worried about me telling her?"
That's a good one.
And she didn't say anything. I was like, "What are you worried about?"
Yeah.
Because if you had nothing to worry about, you wouldn't be asking me that question.
Yeah.
And there have been multiple times where she has said extremely hurtful things, and she just gives a blanket apology being like, "That's just how I am." And it's just so you it there's a book, Walking on Eggshells, and I have it with
Mhm.
me, but I haven't read it yet. There's a lot that I haven't read yet. And it's basically how my dad and I had to navigate living with
Yeah.
her and, like,
Yeah.
catering to making sure that peace and stability is in the house, even if it means that we aren't stable and, like, we are at peace. And what really did me in was I went to a therapist 10 years ago, and I talked about all these things that have been bothering me because it would really build up, like, anxiety in my body, and my now husband was like, I think you need to talk to somebody about this. Like, this is a lot to handle. And me and my therapist started talking about like what boundaries look like and, like recognizing these disruptive behaviors and like hurtful patterns and stuff. And I remember one time I tried to have a conversation with her, and this was after she lashed out at my now husband on a family trip. And when you live in this environment, you are very cynical, but also have a lot of dark humor. So after this happened and my
And can
husband was like,
predict things too, like responses, yeah, because
yes.
of the hypervigilance, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So I remember she lashed out at him and said really awful things. And we were only dating like a year at that time. And I told him in private afterwards, I was like, honestly, that kind of means you're in. Like, because everyone
She wouldn't have
outside
shown it if
she
it
wouldn't have
yeah.
shown it. Everyone outside of our household and outside of our family knows a completely different picture of her. A completely different picture because she wants to be perceived as loving, nurturing, caring, successful, doting on everybody. She wants to be perceived as a giver, and she thrives off of that. But then she shows her true colors to the people that are close to her. I remember I told her in a phone call, like, "Hey, these things that you do hurt me. And like, this is how I feel when you do them." And she went, "No, I don't. I don't do that." And it was that moment that I realized, I'm like, there is nothing I could say to have her come to the realization of changing her behavior or have her take ownership of the things that she does. So now it's shifted from me trying to, what's it called?
It's
It's
like
shifted.
having her acknowledged and recognized
Yeah,
to you it's acceptance.
it is.
It's
It's acceptance.
acceptance, yeah.
So instead of, and like, it's so hard to have people understand this when they come from like a relatively normal
It's wild, yeah.
relationship, because I'm just like, I'm grieving somebody. I'm grieving this vision of somebody that is not real. I made up this person in my head of who I wanted and who I know they could become, but that's not a real person. The real person is in front of me, and this is how they are. So, how do I accept this real person and translate our relationship to one that makes me safe, but also still honors and respects this relationship from the distance that I need? And there have been periods of time where we have not spoken. There have been periods of time where we've been okay. There have been really difficult conversations that we've had, especially around the wedding. I remember there was a moment, I'll never forget this. I didn't understand something she was explaining to me. And that's all I said. I'm like, "Mom, I just don't get it." And we were in a restaurant with my father, and she told me that she never had any happy memories with me. And I was like, "Okay, all right." And of course, she blanket apologized for it 3 days later. But it's just like it was very painful in the beginning because setting up those boundaries with someone, it felt like I was not being the dutiful child anymore.
Yeah, the narrative that you've been told that you have to act, especially
Yeah.
with family systems, it's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
no." You
Yeah.
absorb all of that
Mhm.
in service of the family, yeah.
Yes. And you have to honor the hierarchy and, like, the whole entire, like, respect your elders thing. Respect is fluid and it goes both ways, and it's just, like, having to rewire my brain to know that what I'm doing isn't wrong when it's protecting
Yeah,
myself,
yeah.
and knowing that all of these things that have been building up since childhood, they are affecting my health. There are studies that PCOS and endometriosis are related to like childhood trauma and anxiety. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's more stuff that I have to unpack and figure out. And it's like, I need to get myself in the right headspace to make sure that my body is okay and recovering from holding all this within itself.
For
Decades.
decades,
Yeah.
yeah. One, I'm sorry that you had those experiences. I can relate in more than one way. Something you said was about the acceptance.
Hmm.
It's like, because that's something that I've been working on with my own therapist as well. It's you have this vision, you have these hopes and ideals, And then there is a period of grieving when you get into that of just like, it's not gonna happen. It doesn't matter what I do, what I nothing's like, that's not gonna change. But then I feel like sometime after, the acceptance brings some bit of peace to you.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like when I have those really difficult conversations now with my mom about anything, the come down from that tense moment is a lot faster because I know that I did everything I could. This is everything that she has to work on and that she has to come to terms with, and I know that I need to do what's best for me, and there's nothing I could do to change how she reacts to things. That's all on her. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing with me, right? So, like, one thing that I've learned is, like, this cycle gets perpetuated because we both are in the same habit. So, as long as I'm not doing the same things that I used to do back to her, I'm gonna be better off. So, I've gotten better at walking away, but there are still moments that I'm just so tired of the fight, basically, and just so tired of having to be the bigger person in these conversations and having to be the mature one and having to do the work to kind of recover from all of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and what we're talking about too is intergenerational trauma and how do you break that cycle, which is so important. You spoke a little bit about boundaries,
Mhm.
and I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about what those specifically look like for you, because I feel like boundaries, it's a little bit posh these days. I feel like I'm on Instagram and, like, swiping,
Yeah.
and it's, like, all about boundaries. And so I was
Yeah,
wondering if you could share a little bit about what that looks like for you currently. It's a journey, I feel like,
it is.
enacting those, yeah.
And it's always changing too. So,
Mhm,
like,
mhm.
I know that mine might not be what is cookie cutter therapist recommended boundaries, but they work for the dynamic that we currently have, and I'm sure it's gonna change in the next, like, 2, 5, 10 years too. But, for example, the past, like, 8 months to a year, I've told her multiple times, like, "Hey, these kinds of things that you talk about or, like, this topic doesn't sit well with me. I know we're not gonna have a good conversation if you talk to me the way you do about these things, and I don't think it's good if we talk about them. So, whenever you do talk about them, I'm gonna remove myself from the conversation." And there have been instances where she just steamrolls over me when I say that, and I'm like, "Okay, if you're gonna keep talking, I'm gonna leave." And I will hang up, and I'll be like, "We're gonna try again." And if we try again and this still happens, then we're not gonna talk for a bit. So, I mean, because of that, there are moments that I've hung up on her. It has naturally made her very volatile and very angry, but that's kind of where we're at, and then we try
Yeah, it's
again.
following through on the boundary. I always say, like, the boundary I work with a lot of clients on boundary work, and the boundary is for you, like we've said, to keep you safe. And the tough part is usually the follow-up, the enforcing the boundary.
Yeah, it is.
It's
It really is, and, like, even now, like, what's really difficult is that my parents still live together, and it is really hard for me to talk to only my father. So my mom wants to be present and involved in every conversation, which is also a whole other thing. But because of that, I can never fully not speak to her if I don't wanna talk to my dad. And it's like he's at the stage in his life where I am not going to miss any of those opportunities. And it's like, okay, I know for a fact that there are moments that I'm gonna tell her, "We can't talk anymore. You need to pass the phone to dad, or else I'm gonna call dad directly and then tell him not to give the phone to you." And then she passes the phone off and we talk and that's it. Lately, we used to speak every week, and now it's every other week because it's just gotten to be too much for me. It's very debilitating the days that we do talk, and I'm like, I can't lose a whole day of my week and be in that headspace. So, that's what I do now. She doesn't like it. I hear it every time that she doesn't like
you
it.
can act differently. I just like that's like, if you acted differently, maybe you would like them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, "You know what? You could also call me instead of having me be the one to do it every other week." So, I mean, you know what the steps are to change, and I understand why you don't do it, but you know.
Yeah, yeah. This resonates so much. Of what you're saying, I think a huge reason of why I went down the path into coaching is just because of the family system that I was raised in and the lack of people wanting to change. And when you work with coaching clients, it's people who are like, they're paying because they want help to change and they're already invested in it. So I'm curious if there's any like tools or practices that you've picked up along the way on this journey that you've been on of healing.
So, one thing my therapist told me to do, I think over a year ago, and my husband and I do this together every day. At the end of the day, we always tell each other one thing we're grateful for that day.
Mhm.
And that just really helps us reframe and like rethink about the day, no matter what happens that day, how we can still find something beneficial that came out of the day. And that's been very helpful for me, us really. And I think also understanding and like really taking a step back from my initial reaction to things and like sitting with my emotions a bit more in those moments and kind of approaching these situations from a more removed aspect. So, like, if there was a moment that she's volatile, kind of being like, okay, well, asking questions instead of just responding or being very calm in the reaction. And I think that's really helped me, especially coming down from these conversations. But the reframe has been wonderful. And I know that comes with time and therapy.
Wisdom, yeah.
Yeah, like, it truly comes with time because I would not be able to do this 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, those have been, I think, the most helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Those resonate. The not immediately reacting is mindfulness. It's staying present, like noticing when your body's super uncomfortable and your nervous system is activated and just being present for that. And even what you're talking about, the calmness, gray rocking. It's the you're just there, you're not giving them a reaction. Because often with volatile personalities, they actually thrive off of your nervous system dysregulation, which is wild.
And it's almost like I have to I think also really understanding that she doesn't know what she's doing. Like, It's it's almost like because she's both of my parents have gone through their own respective childhood traumas as well, and I know for a fact that they have not addressed them appropriately, right? And I'm sure my mom is still stuck in the headspace of a teenager from when these things have happened. I know that she is also struggling, and this is someone who is struggling, and I think approaching her as a stranger is easier for me than approaching her as my mother, because I feel like I've had so many expectations of a parent that I can understand her better as a person. So if I remove this one aspect of her that I feel she is lacking in, I can better see her eye to eye as an everyday
Have
person.
compassion. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and be like, "Okay, well, like, I'm not gonna feed in like the temperamental teenager that I used to be. I'm just gonna come from a place of, you're going through something, and we're just gonna need to take a step back."
Yeah. You mentioned the one book that you haven't read yet.
Yeah, stop walking on eggshells.
Yeah, one of my favorites is, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents.
I've also read that and
Yeah,
the self-care one for adult
yeah,
children.
yeah, yeah, same. And then, Boundaries book, Set Boundaries, Find Peace is my favorite, yeah.
I'll add that one because I have read I even took notes because I was like, "Which ones have I read?" I know I've read it was the Emotionally Immature Parents ones. It Didn't Start With You, also great. And then the one I just recently listened to was How to Do the Work. So recognizing patterns, healing from your past, all that stuff. And that was great. And then my therapist recommended When Things Fall Apart.
Yep,
So
I think you'll like that, yeah. The Pema Chodron one, I
mhm.
believe yeah, yeah, that's one of my favorites. That's, when I actually started my journey with mindfulness, and it's very good. This is like the traumatized daughter starter pack. Talk
It's just like the ones that gotta work through things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which I think is many people, and I think it's more I think that our generation dealt with our parents not going to therapy. And so, like, it's becoming more accepted. We're talking about things. I always say we heal in community, not in silence and in shame. So,
You do.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
actually so that's really funny that you bring that up with as far as healing with community. I was always told as a child and even as a young adult, never talk about what happens in our home to anybody. Like what happens in our family stays in our family, including my relatives overseas. And it was so isolating. And that these things that were happening were actually bad things and not just me thinking they were bad.
Yeah.
And I think one of my sorority sisters and I, we have gotten closer in the sense of having more intimate conversations the past couple years because she has gotten comfortable talking about her problematic relationship with her parents, specifically her mother. And her and I send these like 5 to 11-minute voice memos back and forth talking about how we're navigating this stuff together. And I'm the only person in her circle that has a similar relationship, and she thought she was going crazy. And coincidentally, in January of this year, I was at a coffee shop working, and I overheard these college age girls talking like 2 tables over, and this one girl was saying she was venting about issues with her mom, and her friends were being wonderfully supportive. She was like, "I don't want you to think that this is all I have to talk about when this is all the things that I talk about all the time. It's just really hard when I don't know anyone that's going through what I'm going through, and you're the only friends I have to talk to about it." And I felt for her. I knew exactly what she felt, and I'm not the kind of person to approach somebody, especially a stranger,
Yeah.
but I approached her and her friends, and I was like, "Hey, I don't mean to interrupt you. I know you're having a good time, but I couldn't help but overhear your conversation about your mom, and I wanna let you know that I know what this is like. If you want, you can have my number, we can get coffee, and you can talk about it, but no pressure. I can leave and you can delete it, like, that's not a big deal." She started crying, and she was like, "You just made my day." I gave her my number, and we have been getting coffee every week since that
Oh my
happened in
gosh.
January. We talk on the phone, we text, we hang out. She just moved to Columbus, and I'm seeing her this weekend. Like, I feel like it's such a hard thing to be vulnerable about because the
Yeah.
mother-daughter relationship is so idealized on social media and in pop culture. You almost feel like you're broken if you don't have it and that you can't talk about it if you don't have it. I know what this girl was going through, especially at the age of 25. I've been there. It's just so nice to know that, like, talking about it and being vulnerable about it does help people, even if it scares you a little bit. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, this was terrifying me for about a week.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
gonna be speaking on a relatively public platform, and I was like, "It's gonna help people, I'm sure." Was
Yeah.
like, it's a scary thing to talk about.
Yeah. And I wanna acknowledge I mentioned it briefly before we started recording, but the amount of courage that it takes to be open and to speak about it and to share your story truly is being of service to other people. So I really just appreciate you being vocal about it. I have a feeling I already know when this episode comes out, we'll probably get a lot of feedback from listeners who can relate and who have been there. So,
Oh, I'm
yeah.
so nervous. I'm,
Yeah.
like, nervous, but excited and, like, anxious about it because it's yeah, it's just such it's something that's so I feel like it's so common,
It is. Yeah.
and people don't realize how common it is,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, "No, we're out there.
Yeah.
We will help you through it. We're
Yeah.
out there."
Yeah. Yeah. What have you learned about yourself throughout this whole journey?
I feel like I have learned so many things, even in the past, like, month, right? Or this past year, but, like, throughout this whole entire time, I've learned that the things I was most afraid of are survivable. I've been through worse, and I've survived worse, and I am very, very lucky to have the wonderful support system that I've built for myself through my friends and my husband. So lucky because I wouldn't have been as successful in this without them. So, like, fostering the community that I've fostered, I'm very proud of myself for being able to suss out the right people and, like, the people that really, like, give me family
Yeah.
in
Yeah, yeah.
in in like the sense that I know I deserve. And I've learned that I am not the negative product of my parents' traits like I thought I would be. I've learned I'm very resilient and I'm very resourceful. And even my husband has said this multiple times, and he's told a few of our friends that are more on the outside of this than we are. He was like, truly, it is astonishing and amazing that she has come out the way she is from that environment because you could go one of two ways, and she excelled in the positive direction. So I think knowing that I am comfortable with the negative traits that I've taken on and like how to write them and understand where they come from is a huge thing. And learning that like I can break this cycle and become better and be someone that I know people are proud of, whether it's a reflection of what my parents equate as something to be proud of or not.
Mic drop. How can folks stay connected to you?
So I pretty much just exist on Instagram. That's where I'm at, social media wise, LinkedIn for my job. But yeah, Instagram is where they can find me. So it's the phonetic spelling of my name. So AHNUHVECKY is my Instagram handle at Anna Vecchi. That's where I'm at. It's just personal stuff. So you would see my everyday life with our dog and my husband and our
And her
friends.
fabulous wedding photos.
And thank you. My wonderful wedding photos that I will covet until the day I die and then some. But yeah, that's where I am and LinkedIn. But yeah, it's nothing really fancy. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
life.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad that this is something that you wanted to talk about. I know it's a little different, but it's just so important to be whole and take care of all these aspects, to take care of other parts. So
Yeah. Thanks for being here. If something in this episode landed with you, feel free to pass it along to someone who might need it too. You can leave a review, subscribe, or just keep tuning in. We're figuring it out together. And remember, your story, your voice, your becoming, it all matters.